Hello, welcome to this video on the fourth dimension. I scoured YouTube and the internet looking for explanations on what is the fourth dimension, and I found a lot of good information on YouTube and a lot of good information online on what could the fourth dimension be. Honestly, the most accurate, okay, I'm gonna just tell you the reason why I'm making this video is because I know what the fourth dimension is. And the most accurate theory that I've heard comes from a high school student, which I'm not surprised, because in order to comprehend the fourth dimension in our time, where we are in human evolution, you really kind of need to be 40 years old or younger. Anybody older than that cannot really comprehend what the fourth dimension actually is. But you should watch this video anyways, because even though you are older, what you can do is hear these words. So, in order to understand all of the earthly dimensions, especially the fourth dimension, the most advanced in Earth's evolution, we need to understand all the other dimensions. Now, I know you don't want to see this, another piece of paper, and in all the other videos about the fourth dimension, they use this piece of paper, but I'm not going to use it the same way that these guys are. So first I'm going to talk about the 0th dimension and the first dimension. They're level, they're on the same plane, they're equal. Okay, they're actually both the first dimension, but they're separate dimensions. The 0th dimension looks just like a 0. And the first dimension looks just like a 1. So I'm going to draw those two on a piece of paper and show you guys what the first dimension looks like. It's the 0th dimension and the first dimension together. Now, in order for this to evolve through evolution, so at this time, Earth was there was no Earth. The solar system was a dust cloud. And as that dust cloud basically existed in space-time, it expanded and multiplied. We got more zeros and ones. And this happened and created a lot of this. That's my cats playing in the background, by the way. And so with tons of the meeting between the 0th dimension and the first dimension, we didn't create. The creation of information took place. Okay? We all know what this is. This is DNA. Or DNA is this. Right? So we know DNA is information. So this was the creation of the instructions, okay, which was not easy and took billions and billions and billions of years to do. And billions of years of the 0th and the first dimensions evolving together, they were able to create the second dimension. And this was the birth of our planet Earth. So just like we're born, and we don't exist until we're born, the Earth did not exist until it was born. And it was born from the 0th and the first dimension. And then became the second dimension, which is what we have here. Okay. Now, I'm going to use this to show you what a second dimensional organism is, but I'm actually already holding it. So we created a pair of two-dimensional beings. Okay? Now, these two-dimensional beings, they do exist. Now, nobody can dispute that there is not two stick men drawn on this piece of paper. They are here, and they are real. They were not here before I started making this video. The second dimension has also evolved. So from the beginning, in the creation of the second dimension has evolved through a bunch of this into basic matter, and then through evolution. And the second dimension is still evolving as we speak. It's been evolving. It evolved through the dinosaurs, and it's been evolving and growing daily, by the minute, as we speak. It just happens so slowly. The evolution of the second dimension is so slow, it's invisible to us. We can't see it. Okay? But I'm going to do a little more with my two-dimensional beings here that I've created. I am a god of the two-dimensional world, by the way, and so are all of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some eyes to my two-dimensional beings. Okay? Now, the reason why I give eyes to my two-dimensional beings is because I want them to have vision. I want them to have sight. I want my creation to be able to see. But unfortunately, my creation is a two-dimensional creation, and it can only see in a two-dimensional form, which means it can only see a flat surface. Now, how that works is that if this piece of paper is like this, the two-dimensional being can see that straight line. You can see that straight line. That's what a two-dimensional being can see. Now, if I turn this piece of paper like this, the two-dimensional being can still only see that straight line. No matter how much I turn this piece of paper, the two-dimensional being will always only see this. Now, if I hold this piece of paper completely flat, like this, the two-dimensional being can see the whole entire plat plane. Okay, but as soon as it becomes three-dimensional and I curve this, now the three-dimensional being can only see the one single part of the piece of paper that's flat. And if I curve this piece of paper at all, even this as little as I can possibly can, and make the slightest curve possible, okay, the slightest curve possible, no matter what you do, okay, on a microscopic level, that piece of paper is no longer flat, and so the only thing a two-dimensional being can see are slivers of flat spaces. And it's a very weird looking world. It would look like a digital, goopy, pixelated kind of a mess is what the two-dimensional world would look like. It's really probably something that you don't want to see, and so that's why two-dimensional life was not given or did not evolve and has not evolved the ability to see, because in the two-dimensional world, sight, there's no place for it there. Now, over time, the two-dimensional world evolved more and more advanced, okay? And in my next little segment here, I'm going to talk about the evolution, and we're going to look at some examples of some highly evolved two-dimensional organisms that we do know are alive. So we'll be right back. Now, here we are in the two-dimensional world. It is a two-dimensional universe, and the two-dimensional life, which started from dirt and just the basic elements, has evolved over time, over a long period of time, to become super intelligent, highly advanced, totally alive, two-dimensional life. All these trees around me, all this nature around me is highly intelligent, living beings. Now, they are the environment that I live in. They're the environment that the bugs and the animals and everything live in. The third dimension has evolved out of the second dimension. After billions of years that the zeroth dimension and the first dimension existed, which are basically the same dimension, by the way, remember, for billions of years, those two dimensions existed. And over time, they created a DNA code, which created the second dimension, which evolved into an insanely complex world. And in this insane complex world, the birth and evolution of the third generation, which could not exist, or sorry, the third dimension, which could not exist without the first dimension and the second dimension. So from now on, when I refer to the first dimension, everyone, remember I'm referring to the 0th dimension and the first dimension, because they are one. Remember, 0 plus 1 is still 1. So we'll just refer to that as the first dimension from now on. So I have my piece of paper here. This is my piece of paper where I created, out of, literally, information that I have stored in here. So out of the first dimension, I have total power over. I used knowledge from the first dimension to create something in the second dimension. So this, which is also a living organism, if you looked at this under a powerful enough microscope to the quantum level, you would see that it is alive. This two-dimensional thing that I have here is made from this two-dimensional world here, but could not be done without the influence from a fourth dimensional being. Now, I got to explain this, and this is complicated. You have to be a dimension ahead to have total power over another dimension. So let's say there's a 5th and a 6th and a 7th dimension. Those dimensions cannot have any power over the dimension below them. They can only have power over the dimensions that are below that one. So, like as in a physical power, these dimensions though, they do change very drastically. So between the first dimension and the second dimension, we have the biggest change, the most drastic change. I guess it's all in how you look at it though. So now this is a two-dimensional being right here. This is a little plant right here, is a two-dimensional being. It is alive, okay? Now it cannot interact with me. I'm in the third dimension, okay? My three-dimensional body can interact with it, okay? So it is aware, okay, because I'm moving it around right now, it knows that there is something out there in the universe that's more powerful than it is, right? And all the while, it doesn't really know what its purpose in life is, and it just lives its life and does its thing, and, you know, it doesn't have the conscience that we have, which is fourth dimensional, by the way. So this two-dimensional being, it knows that there is a fourth dimension that exists. I mean, it doesn't know that there's a fourth dimension. It knows that there's a third dimension that exists because I'm holding it. I can pluck a leaf off of it, and I guarantee you that this life form doesn't really comprehend what a three-dimensional life form is, yet it knows that there is something out there in the universe that exists because it just had its leaf ripped off. And there is nothing in the second dimension that could be doing that in its world, okay? In its universe. There's nothing in its universe that could have just pulled its leaf off of. There's nothing in its dimension that could have done that. The only thing that can do that is a being from the third dimension, okay? So although these trees and this forest, which is a two-dimensional community, are aware of each other and everything else, and they're aware of their two-dimensional world, they are not aware that I'm here right now. They are not aware that I'm making a video. They don't know what's going on in the third-dimensional world whatsoever. They have no clue. So for humans, we're a three-dimensional being. Let's say we're a three-dimensional being. So if humans are a three-dimensional being, and there is a fourth dimension, should we know that it's there? Should we be able to find it? Should we be able to access it? Should we have any power over it? I don't think so. But there are huge, drastic changes between the dimensions. So the third dimension shouldn't, by mathematical law, the third dimension should not abide by the laws of the second dimension, and nor should the fourth or of any other dimensions that go beyond. The laws of physics only exist within the dimension that they are in, okay? So all this has evolved on Earth. All this two-dimensional life has evolved on Earth out of the first dimension. And as a matter of fact, so has the third dimension and the fourth dimension have also evolved right here on Earth from Earth, okay? So you as a human being, your body is from Earth, comes from Earth, and your conscience and your mind, which is so different than anything else on this planet, and unique and single and solitary, it's ours and ours alone. Humans are the only thing that possess this conscience. We have also evolved from this earth. Your conscience has evolved from this earth. So your conscience that you try to connect with, say, God. Sorry about that. My phone storage just filled up, so I had to delete a bunch of old videos there. But anyways, so we are the first step in evolution of we are the very first primitive forms of fourth dimensional beings here on Earth. So basically we're that stage like when bacteria is just forming and is really the most primitive form of life. It's like just DNA basically. It's forming the very first two-dimensional life, which evolved over time to be this. Okay? And now we are the very first fourth dimensional beings. In a way you could say we've designed ourselves, but we haven't. Our consciousness, everything about us is from this planet, is from Earth. Our consciousness, which is the fourth dimensional being, is the latest stage in life that Mother Earth has created. Mother Earth has created all the life that's here now, including us and including our consciousness. Our consciousness is created by this planet from this Earth, and it's created for a reason. Now, could there be further evolved dimensions out there where they have mastered and have influenced our dimension here? So is Earth and our dimensions being influenced by fifth, sixth dimensions that we would never know they were here? So, you know, if there are further evolved forms of fourth dimensional life, they could be here on Earth walking around us, but just like this little plant here, this little two-dimensional life has no idea I exist. It can just sense me. We can't interact with fourth dimensional beings that are outside of us. You know what I mean? So we are basically three-dimensional beings that are being used to evolve fourth dimensional beings. So we are the very beginning of fourth dimensional life. So your conscience is the fourth dimension. It's the fourth dimensional world. It's a real world that exists, and it's here on this planet. Okay? It's constructed from the first dimension, the second dimension, and the third dimension are the construction materials used to create your fourth dimensional life, right? Now, we hold a lot of power over the second dimensional world, and the fourth dimensional world holds a lot of power over the third dimensional world. We are a three-dimensional life form holding fourth dimensional life forms in our conscience. So just like every being has power over, not total power, okay? So like I can influence the third dimension, but I don't have God power over the third dimension. The fourth dimension, which exists in my brain, in my mind, has influence over my three-dimensional body, but it doesn't have God powers over my three-dimensional body. Only a fifth-dimensional being would have God power over a three-dimensional life form. But anyways, hopefully this explains a little bit more for you guys. I will do more updated videos, but the whole point of this video is for everyone to realize that as we travel through the dimensions, we're still Earth creatures. We're still part of this planet, and your conscience is part of Mother Earth. And honestly, as Mother Earth evolves as her own life form, it wasn't until humans that she could finally see herself. So because we exist, our planet is now able to interact with its own creations. So now that we exist, now that life on this planet has evolved to fourth dimensional beings, which we are, but we're super primitive and we need a three-dimensional body to still be here. And in order for us to evolve as fourth dimensional beings, we need a three-dimensional body because we need to learn the first dimension and the second dimension before we can start living in our fourth dimension, right? And that's all part of Earth's design, okay? Earth is having us evolve a certain way because, well, let's just face it, she's been doing evolution for billions of years and she knows how to do it. So, now that we exist, Mother Earth is finally able to look at herself, to treat herself. We're Mother Earth's nanobots. She has created her own nanobots. And what our job on this planet is to take care of this place, not to destroy this place, right? So she might have screwed up with us, but it wouldn't be the first time that she's had to start over. But I don't think she wants to wipe us out yet because obviously she's tapped into our conscience. Our conscience is part of her body now. And she must know that there's a hope for us because she can read our minds, right? So our conscience, our individual consciences make up one whole conscience, which is our planet's conscience. And so, yeah, that's what God is basically. She can hear your prayers. She can hear your thoughts. She's always watching you. There is nowhere on Earth that her three or her two-dimensional eyes aren't on you. You know what I mean? Because the second dimension lives inside you. The first dimension lives inside you. So these dimensions, it took all three dimensions to be able to set up a world that the fourth dimension could live in. So the first dimension had to set up a world that this second dimension could live in, which the second dimension thrives in this world that was created by the first dimension. We're third dimensional beings and we thrive in this world that was created by the second dimension. There is a fourth dimensional being that lives within us that thrives in our three-dimensional world, but as these dimensions get more advanced, they get more complicated. And there's a lot of problems that come with being a fourth dimensional being in a three-dimensional body. But we have to get through these growing pains before we evolve. But anyways, we're part of Earth's evolutionary process. And so you're part of the Earth, and you are one with the Earth. And yeah, that's all you need to know. I will make more videos. Thanks for watching, guys.